Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Benchmade Mini Taggedout, which is super overdue for a review on this channel. It's just something I never get a hold of. Usually Benchmade sends me stuff to take a look at. This actually came from a Going Gear EDC box, and I thought, yeah, I haven't taken a look at that one, so I'll throw it in my pocket for a few days, because truthfully, this didn't require much effort to review. It's not a whole lot different than what I've come to expect from Benchmade knives over the years, so it really didn't take that much. But I did enjoy certain elements of carrying this knife. I'm going to share my thoughts with you guys. This is actually one of the best priced Benchmade knives in existence right now, which is kind of ridiculous considering it's still a $171 knife. Yes, it's made in the USA. Yeah, even looking at these materials, like, it's still going to cost a lot more to make something in the USA versus China, but it's still, you know, it's a little high. Don't worry, we're going to cover all of it. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. I keep calling it the Taggedout. People get upset with me for that, so I might say that on purpose, but it is the Taggedout. Let's go ahead. I'm sorry, the Mini Taggedout. The overall length of this guy's coming in at 7 inches. Blade length is coming in at 3 inches. Cutting edge is 2.9. First of all, let's put it up against a few knives for size comparison. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against something like the 8010. Obviously, the 8010 is hulking compared to it. 8020.5. Definitely more comparable here. We have the same, a little bit less cutting edge than the 8020.5, but much more handle room. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Very similar in overall size to the Para 3. Para 3 is still a little bit longer, but the Taggedout, God, I don't know why that's hard for me to say. Probably because I'm stupid. The Taggedout, the Mini Taggedout, actually has more cutting edge than the Para 3, but the Para 3 has a longer handle. Let's put it up against, finally, the Benchmade Griptilian. There's a magnet stuck to it, sorry. Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. And let's put it up against the Hogue Deca. You're forgetting one! Oh, the Bug Out, of course. This is actually kind of in between the size of the regular Bug Out and the Mini Bug Out. I think it's actually quite a bit closer to the Bug Out, right? Yeah, I think it's actually quite a bit closer to the Bug Out than it is the Mini Bug Out. Why not put it up against the full-size Taggedout? I'll tell you why, because I didn't keep it. The full-size one, whenever I had it, I definitely gave it away. I can't remember what I did with it, but it wasn't something that I wanted to keep. And it'll be the, spoiler alert, it'll be the same for this one. Yeah, so there you go. How is the action on this knife? It is very similar to other Benchmade knives. So over a couple of, like I said, this wasn't like taken out and like, I didn't like survive in the wilderness with it. You know, I didn't like make a fire with it and take apart my lawnmower with it. I didn't do that. Just carried it like a regular Joe. There's nothing, I mean, like, there are no surprises with this knife. It's a Benchmade Axis lock. It's running on phosphor bronze washers. It's similar to a multitude of models that you and me and your mom and your aunt's dog have all experienced a million times, right? So this didn't require much effort. It was in my pocket for maybe a day and a half, and it was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. You can flick it out with a little hole thing. It doesn't quite want to drop. It hasn't really, I mean, given time, those self-lubricating washers will allow it to break in a little better. It's kind of doing what I expect all Benchmades to do right out of the box, which is be a little bit finicky, and eventually it'll break in just fine. But it works. I can manipulate it just fine. I don't think that this hole is placed perfectly. I don't think access to it is perfect, and I don't think it's big enough. But, you know, to be incredibly satisfying. But can you do it? Yeah. Every time I got it out of my pocket, I could get it to deploy. There's just not really a way to deploy this that feels incredibly satisfying versus the Bug Out's thumb stud. I'm not saying thumb studs are universally better, right? If you have a hole in exactly the right place, then it's actually more satisfying, in my opinion, to use a hole. And it's also easier to use it when you are wearing gloves. Gloves with this guy, not so fun. Barehanded, I can make it work, right? The action's fine. It's the axis lock, right? It's nothing, there's nothing to like celebrate here. It does exactly what you'd expect it to do, and it's not quite optimal. I'll leave it at that. Carry profile, thickness up against the, Spyderco Para 3. It's pretty darn thin up against the bug out. I know I've got aftermarket scales on this guy, but the aftermarket scales are about as thin as the standard scales. It is thicker than the bug out, which I personally like. I think this feels better than the bug out because the scales are not credit card thin. We have this weird fascination with like, oh, it's so thin. It must be better because they said it was better in the marketing. Right? I don't know. Personally, there's not a whole lot of difference between carrying something like I had to put the tie scales on the bug out. I had to because I hate this stuff. Grivery, injection mold plastic, GFN, FRN. Oh, the whole alphabet of just wafer crap. I hate this stuff. But it's thin. You can maximize, you carry utility, you minimize the weight. I don't care. And the vast majority of people who pick stuff up like this won't either. The only people who really care are the 0.00001% of people who are actually out doing your hiking, backpacking, your whatever, right? Your long-term sort of adventure quest where you actually do have to count every last ounce on your person, right? Maybe you're military or whatever, right? In those situations, sure. I think there's plenty of a reason for that. They design it specifically for that incredibly teeny tiny percentage of people, and then they market it to the everyman, like me and you, who are walking around our house in our sweatpants, or you're walking around outside in cargo pants, right? So this doesn't really do you and I much good. I can carry a 3, 4, even 5 ounce knife, and after 30 minutes, I'll forget that it's in my pocket and it won't matter anyway, and I essentially get the same amount of utility out of it. In this case, I find that the elements of this knife being, on the smaller side, like the weight factor means nothing to me. I am drawn to it for the fact that its scales are thicker and more comfortable than something like the bug out. I also like this area right here. I think that's nice, right? But I'm basically just kind of annoyed with the opening mechanism, and then after that, I'm like, yeah, it's a Benchmade, right? So this material reduces the cost of the knife versus Benchmade's other knives, which are atrociously priced. I mean, yeah, again, USA, I get it, but I mean, they're priced similar to the tier above them. A lot of their knives are priced, they're getting close to Chris Reeve, Rick Hinderer, Demko. No, that's not the category they're in, right? So, it's like you could make the argument, it reduces the price and it's still really durable, I guess. But I don't like that argument because I think all of the prices are ridiculous. And then the weight element, I just don't care about. And I think the vast majority of people who say that they do care about it are kidding themselves, right? Unless, I think I shouldn't say that. That's a little harsh. There are people out there who are like, I'm not trying to min-max my carry weight experience. I just really like lightweight knives. Okay, I think that's a fair argument. I think that's fine, right? If that's your thing, then boy howdy, have I got a knife for you. But I don't like this material. I don't like it. The only time that I think it's okay, or it's acceptable, is if we are looking at like a Chinese budget knife that's under 30. Like, okay, the Pyrite Light from CJRB. You can get that knife for $30. Hey, I'll take it. For $30? Sure, because it feels like a $30 knife. Just like this. This feels like a $30 knife. And we do that things as human beings where we relate the weight to the value, which is stupid. We shouldn't do that, right? We should consider all of the elements, like where it's made, right? What the blade material is made out of, the cost of heat treatment and grinding it properly and all of that, tolerances, everything, right? How big is the company? Are they mass producing it, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really hard when you pick something like this up and it's got the little tag attached to it and it says $171 and you're like, ooh, jeez. I know you guys have done that. You gone to the Cabela's counter and you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. How much is it? And you have a little tag, right? If you've never handled a Benchmade knife before, the little tag falls down. $171. Ooh. Like you're like, ooh, take it. You can have that back, sir. Yeah, that's what it feels like. So I've heard all of the arguments, believe me, right? I've been here for a long time, been a knife person for a long time, been reviewing Benchmade knives for a long time. I've heard it all. Don't love this material. What did we do? We did, you know what? We haven't done, we started to do carry profile and I got off on my tangent there, but it's thicker than the bug out, which I like, right? Not quite as thick as something like the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Yeah, this is not a cumbersome object. Not at all. It's so lightweight and compact that it's in the category of knife that I will forget is there, which is actually not a positive for me. It is a positive if you wear a lot of fitted pants or you, which fitted pants, athletic shorts, stuff like that, which is not at all who they're trying to market to with this. But yeah, that is a blessing or a benefit, I guess. A blessing is a little intense. A benefit, I guess. But for me, I'm like, yeah, it's so lightweight that I will forget that it is in my pocket. So to be fair, yes, it's very easy to carry. And in and out of the pocket is fine outside of the pocket clip being right on top of this, this text string. Truthfully, I had a very positive, I say very positive, just like a normal, it's easy to carry. It goes in my pocket, right? It's not cumbersome at all. It's good in that sense. So I'll give it that. The weight is 1.7 ounces. Wow! Which means nothing to the difference to me between this and a 3-ounce knife is trivial, right? I don't, anything under 3 ounces, I just don't care because it's a 0.1 ounce. Every tenth of an ounce is leaning more towards the likeliness that I will forget it is there and wash it, right? Or just never see it again. I'm like, where did those pants go? I have no idea. They have my mini Taggedout in them. So yeah, if you are big on that, right? 1.7 ounces for, what did we say for blade length? 3 inches of blade. Pretty good ratios. Balance on the thing? Yeah, pretty great. It's just incredibly lightweight for not much benefit to the average person, right? Specifically, if you are trying to maximize your utilitarian payload and minimize the total weight, then yes, definitely. Especially if you must buy American cutlery and you will make no exception. Well, then there is a product for you. For everybody else, you aren't making much use of that unless that's just specifically your preference and you don't care to explain why, which is fine because sometimes I like to carry massively overbuilt knives and I have no use for them and I don't feel like I have to explain myself. So I think that's perfectly fair, right? But let's be real about it. Right? Let's do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. This is a Benchmade knife, so the pivot is a T10, and then all 17 kajabillion of the screws on the scales are T6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Holy God. It's just a lot of screws that are T6 just to get inside and go, oh yeah, that's right, it's an axis lock on a cartridge liner. Gee, I can't wait to take this apart further. There's so many screws, and it's because Benchmade is so obsessed with reducing the weight, they won't do full steel liners on this thing and just do 2 screws at the back. They have to do one here for the stop pin for some reason, probably because of the material, right? Well, no, they don't even have to do that because it's part of the steel cartridge liner right there. So this is totally unnecessary. These screws here are holding in the base of the cartridge liner, and then you have 2 additional screws holding in the standoffs, and then 3 more screws holding in the pocket clip. No, I'm sorry, 2 holding in the pocket clip, right? 3 if you want to use the weenie clip. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. There's actually a few different clips from Benchmade. In fact, I think all of the clips from Benchmade will fit. I just find the weenie clip. What do they call it? Split arrow? That's a wiener. But yeah, 3 if you use that clip. So a lot of screws. Now, taking this thing apart and putting it back together is far from impossible. If you've done it once, you can do it again. The first time you do it, it's going to suck, and you're going to really get frustrated. Tape the blade. Some of my worst cuts in the early days were from taking apart Benchmade knives and realizing that I'm having to hold the axis bar down and push the blade and turn the pivot and make that everything's got to line up and yeah, it kind of sucks. So get a place to put all your hardware, tape the blade off, And make sure you have the right tools for the job, and you should be good to go. But it's not fun. So, anyways, we already did the weight. Let's do the blade stock thickness. Definitely. Blade stock thickness. We are looking at probably 85 thousandths or so. Yeah. 86 and a half, 85 thousandths roughly. Very thin blade, which is going to lend to blade performance. And it did. Let's move into the meat and potatoes here. This knife is just barely comfortable. And when I say it, I mean for my hands. In my hands, I'm much more comfortable on the larger one, right? The smaller one is okay. They didn't give us that hook back end, right? So it's open. So it's fine, right? I'm honestly a little more comfortable on this than I am the standard bug out. I do not like orange. This will be very easy to spot if you drop it outside because it's orange, right? So if you like orange and you are constantly dropping your knife in foliage or whatever, you'll love this, right? You'll really love it if you love plastic scales. If you don't like one or more of those things, this will bother you. Definitely. It is grippy. This is kind of nice right here, though. The only downside to this is that the pocket clip is right on top of it on either side, right? It's a little bit grindy, right? But everything's fine. Ergonomically, it's fine, right? Blade steel, CPM 154. I have no problem with that. CPM 154 is actually a blade steel I'll accept at almost any price point. It's a powder form steel. It's a US steel. It's wonderful in terms of balance. It's not going to win any awards in edge retention. A lot of people like to throw everything else the window and go, well, how long does the edge last? How long can the edge retention? That's the premium stuff. Yeah, well, there's a lot of other things to consider there, right? Specifically, where you're going to use it, how you're going to use it. Do you know how to sharpen a knife? Do you know how to sharpen a knife well, right? There's a lot of elements there. But this is not a steel that belongs in the budget territory. A lot of people refer to the ingot version, which is 154 cm, and even that steel is really good. Very fine grain structure, good balance, right? Decent edge retention, pretty good toughness, pretty good corrosion resistance, very easy to touch up. A knife like this that is 100% made to be used. A lot of people think Benchmade knives are in the safe clean category. No, that category is much, much more expensive. I mean, to the individual, fine. You think whatever you want. But generally speaking, the safe clean category is way, way more expensive. This is an expensive knife, but it's 100% designed to be used, right? And despite the fact that it feels very cheap and feels very flimsy, it actually isn't. The whatever type of injectable plastic, I'm not going to memorize all the little letters, right? I'm not. I just refuse to. Whatever Benchmade uses, it is actually very durable. And as long as you're not using this thing as a sledgehammer, it will hold up. Definitely. And it's backed up by not full steel liners, but cartridge liners. Their axis locks have been proven to be strong, period. Every now and then you'll get somebody with a disengagement on YouTube, but that's par for the course. It's every lock, right? Their axis lock is very, very strong. CPM 154, considering what this is actually meant to be used for, which is outdoor, kind of use it a moment of convenience. It's the quintessential add it to your pack you're obviously carrying a whole bunch of other stuff and you're planning to do something outside. We want you to have a convenient tool that you can get out and use quickly, and it'll make short work of whatever it is that you're trying to do within the parameters of normal knife use, right? Yes, it will do that. It's got wonderful blade geometry, beautiful clip point blade, right? That's how you know it's the Hunt series, because clip point, right? Sure. But yeah, the blade geometry is good. I love CPM 154. It's great. This will do the trick. As long as you're not doing something stupid. If you're like, today's task is chopping a brick in half, well, it's not going to do that. That's not what you should be using a knife for, right? It's not, you're not paying for like durability in idiotic scenarios. That's not what the price tag's for. It will do what it is designed to do, which is cut efficiently. And when the blade goes dull, which will take a long time, not just because of the CPM 154, but because of the general geometry, when it truly goes dull, getting it back to sharp will be very easy because it's CPM 154. I actually don't really have a problem with the blade at all. I think actually the factory bevel here looks really, really good. Benchmade sometimes has a kind of a crazy, you've been there, right? You guys remember buying Benchmades 10, 20 years ago. Yeah, they were a little wacky, right? This is fine. The factory edge is good. I like the stonewash finish on it. I think it looks really nice, right? CBM 154. Thank God there's no website on this one. That's great. Really, the only issue I have with it is just the lack of total access to the opening hole here. Jimping's fine. Probably could have been extended all the way out to here, but fine. Handsome blade, right? Nothing really wrong with the blade. There's a lanyard hole. Couple of orange standoffs, great. You have a pocket clip. This is probably my favorite Benchmade pocket clip. Why? Because it's short. Because the bill of the blade is not going into the bill of the clip is not going into the middle of my hand. And arguments that longer clips keep knives in your pocket better. I think that's nonsense. The total amount of material between the clip and the scales that's holding the knife to your pocket is the same. The difference between a short clip and a long clip is that a long clip is long, and it makes for a less than comfortable experience while you're using it. So I think the short clips are fine. I have never heard a report of someone being like, I lost my Benchmade knife specifically because the clip is too short. I've never heard that. Never. And if I did hear it, I would question it. I would say, wait, what were you doing? Was there a grappling hook involved? Were you on a trampoline? I want all the details, right? So yeah, the carry depth I think is good. Left and right-handed carry as it should be because it's an ambidextrous locking system. No blade play up or down. Left and right, I have a little bit and I can't eliminate it, which is pretty common for Benchmade knives that utilize phosphor bronze washers, especially the little tiny ones like this. It's always a little bit of side-to-side play. I mean, okay, I can eliminate it, but all it does is make the action crappy, right? So yeah, I don't like that. I really wish Benchmade would figure that out. On some of their knives, there's no blade play whatsoever, and the action is wonderful. Other times, seems to be this injectable plastic stuff, right, because of flex or whatever. I have a little bit of blade play, right? Left and right, even a microscopic amount, which is truly what it's just a little tiny bit. I can feel it if I wheel out here at the tip, but not much, right? It won't affect the lockup at all. It's just annoying. The blade is perfectly centered though. So $171. Is it worth it? You have to really, really want a Benchmade. You have to really want to buy a USA-made product. You have to really, really love ultra lightweight knives, right? If you love all that stuff and your favorite color is orange, this is the knife for you. But for everybody else, no. I mean, there's so many better options. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the Chinese knife market, if you're looking at the American knife market, right? Hogue has tons of things I think that are better. But I just, I think what would make this knife substantially better is, the blade steel and the blade is fine. Better access to the hole there, eliminating your blade play. We should not. That should not be an issue. The only reason for blade play anymore should just be a loose pivot. The action should be great. The lockup should be solid. Period. This Grivery stuff, it makes no difference to me. I think that you would anger the 0.00001% of legitimate hiker, backpacker, or whatever types of people who are buying it. You might bother them if you increase the weight a little bit by making the scales G10. It might slightly irritate. They might, oh darn you, And then literally everybody else, the other tens of thousands of customers that you have would be like, yeah, actually great, that feels better. If you could do that and then reduce the price down to what it should be, which considering this is an American product, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to be one of those people who are like, that knife should only cost $40 because I want it to. I'm not going to do that, right? I know that it's still making this in the United States, whether people like it or not, factually costs more money. So realistically, if this knife had G10 scales, right? And it just felt a little more solid all the way around. They could eliminate the blade play and have better access to the opening hole there. And it was around, 130, 140. I'd feel a lot better about it. I think everybody would feel a lot better about it. And I think pretty much everybody knows that Benchmade could do that if they wanted to. But they have managed to increase the prices of everything in their entire lineup and just been like, well, sorry. But Benchmade, your competition is literally that much lower. Sorry. That's how it is. I like Benchmade. I'm going to be honest with you guys. They're the person that I interact with them when they send me stuff. is really nice. And they send me a lot of free stuff, and I appreciate it, and I try to give it to you guys when I'm done reviewing it, right? But that's not going to stop me from pointing this out every single time. This just doesn't feel anywhere near a $170 knife. I don't think people really care about the benefits of the lightweight injection mold plastics, Grivery, FRN, GFN, whatever the heck this is. I don't think the vast majority of people really care. I feel like adding 0.75 ounces to it, with it being G10 and or having a full steel liner, would only add to the solid quality feeling and bother essentially nobody. And reducing the price would make Benchmade less money, but would probably attract a lot more people, right? But I don't know. It clearly seems to be working for them, so I don't know. This is not my favorite knife. I do not recommend this knife. I think that you can find a better knife throwing a rock in almost any direction. But if you decide to go ahead and buy this knife, did you buy a knife that is a poor quality item? No. You still bought a good quality item that will definitely last. It will definitely do the trick. You're just paying a lot more money for elements that are either not very good by comparison to the competition, or are just the necessity of them is imaginary, is essentially what I'm saying. Really harsh review. I know. I'm sorry. I think there's going to be, I imagine the algorithm will kick this out to a lot of hardcore Benchmade fans who just either only like Benchmade or are not aware of other competition. And that, will probably irritate some people, but that's okay. I'm no stranger to that. So I do not recommend this knife, but it's a decently made item that will definitely work as a tool, right? So anyways, that's going to be it today. Please, this will end up as a giveaway item. I'll end up giving this away on a live stream at some point. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.